Hello, and welcome to the DS Book Club, a weekly podcast where we talk about some Dungeons & Dragons and how we can fit it into our role-playing campaigns. With me, as ever, is Fiona, our overlord, our mistress of horror, our awesome leader.
I just went Fiona. I was like, ooh, there's an R at the end of my name now.
Fiona.
I like it. It feels very goth, very metal.
Yeah.
Queen of Darkness. I'll take that. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How are you doing, my friend? How are you doing, Hamilton?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Done some nice demon slayering today. I'm having a nice time. How about you, Queen of Horror?
I sit on my throne of bones. And...
Yeah, exactly. That's what I imagine. More skulls for the skull throne.
Yeah, doing very well, thank you. It's a busy time in general, but it's good busy because I'm also doing creative stuff and basically been fitting out a lot of applications to do actual plays later on in the year, which is exciting. Ooh. I may be at a Gen Con this year, which is very exciting. I have to be like realistic in the sense of like, can I make it? But then all these things keep happening. I'm like, it sounds like I can go to Gen Con. So that's exciting. So yeah, so it's all go.
America, here you come.
First, Iowa. Next, Gen Con, then the world. Yeah, exactly. And I've been doing some with our friends at Realms and with RP Geeks. They've been doing lots of Blood on the Clock Tower, which is the social deduction game. And let me tell you, I've never been so stressed, but then right about something. It blows me away every time. Like we've managed to find like demons on other teams, all that sort of thing. You can note down like who's who on like a pad or something like that. And 90% of my guesses have always been right, and that's never been the case. I've always been like, get the person wrong. This time I'm like, well, if they say who they say they are, and this, and this, it might mean that this person is it. And then I'll be like, yeah, it's that person. And they go, you were right.
You're doing the like deduction pie to seeing the Matrix sort of thing.
Yeah, I feel very much like I'm in my mind palace and I get so shocked. But then when I'm evil, my heart rate goes through the roof because I then have to lie and remember that I've lied to certain people. The last time I pretended to be someone who could gain information. And then people kept coming to me on different days saying, so what was your information on the first day? And I was like, I didn't write it down, what I said. And I just bluffed. And everyone said, yeah, you were so confident. We just went for you. And I was like, nobody listened to me. So I highly recommend checking out Blood on the Clock Tower. And certainly the RP Geeks will be doing lots of streams of them every month, essentially.
Yeah, I would like to join in. And also, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but it looks like a lot of fun. So
yeah, if you like your social deduction games, if you like your werewolf and mafia, it's the same, but it just means that everyone has a bit of information. And even if you are unceremoniously killed by either the imp or the townsfolk, you can still have stuff to say and you can still vote, but you only vote once, essentially. So I quite like that. So you're not just like, well, that's me dead on the first night.
Oh, okay. So you're not out and then you've actually still got something to do. It's on my top list of like games to play just generally for fun as well, like not for streaming, because I love Werewolf a lot. It's a lot of fun.
Speaking of games, what are we talking about today? What is our topic of choice?
We're continuing our topic of choice, which was monks.
Yeah, I'm very excited to finish off monks finally, because we came to the conclusion that we enjoyed the majority of the class. It just got towards the end a little bit like as if they ran out of steam a little bit, although we really liked the optional choices that was given in Tasha's. And the classes that we sort of looked at in the player's handbook, they were good. Like you can get some bits and pieces at it, but I think by the end you were like, I would rather just be able to pick and choose essentially, which we came to the conclusion maybe off podcast. I can't quite remember that maybe that's what happened in like the grand reveal of everything. It's like, here are all the options. If you want to create a certain type of monk, pick these class options, except you might not be able to pick this one if it clashes with this one, etc.
Like particularly we talked about even at the beginning, like the freedom to adjust saving throws and proficiencies, etc. as well, just being a way to just make your monk more unique and just customize it more into like what you want, which I think is such a great, it's something that maybe should be just generic to, and you said, I think that's what they're doing for 2024 D&D, but we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It feels like a way to go, doesn't it? Because I think like, why can't you? I think there's a great use in having, this is the best, or this is the standard, or this is the ultimate way, or whatever you want to use for playing it. But being just much more free on those sorts of elements all the way through but that's kind of what D&D is, and that's what the community does anyway. And I just think I think all we're doing is just reminding probably a lot of preaching to the converted on it a little bit, because everyone's like, I let people change things.
All right, well, let's dive back into monks. So we're going to look at the 8 remaining subclasses that we've got here. Looking at Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, Fizzban's Treasury of Dragons, and the critical role, I believe it's the Wild Mount.
It is Wild Mount. Explorer's Guide to Wild Mount.
David Attenborough style. Like
in the Dwendalian Empire.
In the Kryn Dynasty.
The Kryn Dynasty.
So I thought we should go in a particular order. We'll go from publishing date, because we've already done the player's handbook and stuff.
Makes sense.
We'll start with our least favourite book, which is the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. And I say this, we've not actually really covered it that much.
Hot takes.
It's just
dull.
It's not as good as other guys that have a point of view, I find.
Yeah. It's a very watered down D&D book, is what I'd call it. Whilst at the same time very dry. Somehow watered down and dry at the same time.
Yeah, some sort of like biscuit that is like gone off, per se.
It's a mushy flour.
We're going to look at the Way of the Long Death. So these are monks that are obsessed with the meanings and mechanics of dying. This was really characterized as the evil, in quotation marks, or sort of like nefarious kinds of monks, essentially. They captured creatures and prepare elaborate experiments to capture, record, and understand the moment of their demise. It feels very sort of almost like Frankenstein-esque, very scientific.
Very much like the troubled child, isn't it? It's like, do you know what I mean? It's those things that you see in like Damien movies, where at the beginning it's like the kids clearly, we need to talk about Kevin, whatever it is, start by attacking animals, don't they? And like capturing them and experimenting on animals. And you're like, that's the short road to, something worse.
I love that. Yeah, like you're like, oh, you've killed all these ants with your magnifying glass. And you're like, I wanted to see them burn. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Damien. They have some very interesting features. So starting at level 3, you have the Touch of Death. Your study of death allows you to extract vitality from another creature when it nears its demise. When you reduce a creature to within 5 feet of you to 0 hit points, you gain temporary hit points equal to your wisdom modifier and your monk level to the minimum of 1 temporary hit point. I quite like that. You just almost like catching and ripping off a little bit of essence and then just eating it yourself or something like that. That's how I would describe the flavours of it, like, tasty.
Yum, yum, yum. Eat your life. Then you get Hour of Reaping, moving on. At 6th level, you gain the ability to unsettle or terrify those around you just probably by being there, to be honest.
It's an action, but I just like the fact that you just constantly have it on.
I think you should just have that as a bonus action. I think at least I would, just for the lols, but as an action, for your soul has been touched by the shadow of death. When you take this action, each creature within 30 feet of you that you can see must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be frightened of you until the end of your next turn.
Yeah.
It's very much like the Asimar effect, isn't it? The undead Asimar, I can't remember what they're called. The Fallen, Asimar Fallen. They bring out their necromantic wings.
Yes.
And
like
they
almost
freak
like
the shit out of people because they look like an angel of death, sort of thing.
Yeah, I feel this would be fun as a bonus action, but obviously I know monks use their bonus actions quite a lot for like flurry of blows and all that sort of thing. But I do like the idea that it is just constantly on. Maybe again that flavour something that you're constantly unnerving, and then in combat you just do a cool like blue steel kind of look, but very gothic.
To make this really, really stupid.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've done with our Oops All Darts.
Yeah.
Mr. Collins from Pride and Prejudice, the movie.
Amazing.
His Hour of Reaping is when he goes, hello.
Hello.
Does this little creepy way.
Yeah, the creepy hand way.
He is a monk. He's a priest. So I could see a Mr. Collins build, and he just does unsettle and terrify all those around him. And so the condescension.
Yeah, quite like that. If we did like period drama characters.
Pride and Prejudice and Touch of Death.
Pride and Prejudice could easily be like Oops All Bennetts, that sort of...
Oops All Collins.
Oh no, because you'll be so slimy and you have to go around the ball and like...
You're just all oozes. Like that could be the best sort of like antagonist, is it's like a group of clones that are all just Collinses.
Yeah, and their evil intent is just to get a wife. It's nothing bigger than that.
We wish for a wife.
At level 11, we've got Mastery of Death. So you use your familiarity with death to escape its grasp. So when you're reduced to 0 hit points, you can expend 1 key point, no action required, to have 1 hit point instead.
Boom.
I love that. It's such a cool...
the orc ability of...
Yes, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but yes.
I'm not fucking dying today.
Yeah. There's like a barbarian thing as well, which I think is like relentless rage as well, where the first time you drop to 0, you go to 1, and then everything after that, the DC increases by 5 for a constitution saving throw. Yeah, I really like this mastery of death one because I think it's just so cool. And the fact that it doesn't have an action. So you spend that key point and then you're up ready to go on for a fight and moving and all that sort of thing.
It's such a good, like, you can imagine it in that sort of big boss battle. You're the only one left. You know you need to get another round in. You're like, guys, I've got this. And then they just like, you get completely annihilated by a spell. And they're like, no, Tabitha. And Tabitha's like, I'm up. Let's go.
Nice try.
It does a little like Morpheus hand gesture, and then it's just like,
yeah, oh yes,
punch them in the face, flurry of blows, kill Vecna.
Oh yeah, kill Vecna. Step 4, kill Vecna. Step 5, profits. And then finally, for the Way of the Long Death, you have Touch of the Long Death. Your touch can channel the energy of death into a creature. As an action, you touch one creature within 5 feet of you and expect 1 to 10 key points. They must make a Constitution saving throw, taking 2d10 necrotic damage per key point on a fail save, or as half as much damage on a successful one. Can you imagine, like, you managed to finally, like, you know, that first bit of the battle, you rush up and you just, like, slap the head of
10 key points. 20d10 necrotic damage.
But that's the thing, like, it's such a risk because obviously there's key points we use for loads of different things. But I'm like, if you like, we need to get in there, we need to end this. Just
good on dragons, not great on undead. That's the only problem. I wouldn't take this build into Curse of Strahd. Because having 20d10 necrotic damage is not going to do anyone any favors in Curse of Strahd, is it really?
It's tricky because sometimes people are resilient to it, etc. That's the only thing.
I think it's on par with fire because of the whole undead sphere of things that don't take necrotic damage or are resistant to necrotic damage if they're not immune.
Maybe then you could have it, because obviously necrotic makes sense because obviously death is the name of the subclass, but I wonder if maybe you could choose between necrotic
and
radiant, yeah, absolutely.
It opens you up to so many more things because if nothing can't take one or the other. There's nothing that I can think of offhand, but there might be a god that's immune to both radiant and necrotic damage. You've mastered the art of death and the balance between the two. I feel that could be argued to flavor wise to be the balance of the life and death, isn't it? The passing transition. You can both inhibit and you can play death in a sense, so I feel that would make sense to me, and I would allow that.
Yeah, because you're thinking about like the touch of death, that's obviously temporary hit points as well, so it's not actual healing as well. So I definitely see that. So I think that's the only thing I completely agree with you, but I can imagine you using it up those 10 key points and just like dodge this, that sort of
dodge this.
Let's move on then to Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So here, let's start with one I think is quite popular.
I'm on the holding with bated breath because I don't know which one's next. You know the order.
So I do. I'm so sorry. I was going to go for The Way of the Drunken Master.
Yeah.
Which teaches its students to move with the jerky, unpredictable movements of a drunkard. It talks about this character as sort of like one that you would underestimate in a battle. So instantly the person I come to when I'm thinking about this is Captain Jack Sparrow, the way they're sort of jerky with their movements and actions. They easily avoid hits and stuff. They're not like they're not taking out. They're just constantly dodging. It's almost like a self-preservation thing. So that's what I think of when I think of like Drunken Master. I think of those wobbly movements as you're walking from bit to bit.
The one that it makes me think of, and this is because this is my deep dive Instagram, like random things that Hamilton is interested in watching, which is NPC dances. Have you seen these? So it's like robotic dance moves, so like doing the robot, but it's the NPC ones where it's like
they move their bodies back and forth.
They do the music from Skyrim a lot of the time with it. There's a guy called Dr. Robot Mick, M-I-K, instead of Robotnik, and he's really good at that. And if you just follow him on Instagram, you can see this sort of like constantly bouncing and your movements are jerky because it's like you're a glitching computer.
Yeah.
Obviously the famous Drunken Master forms of fighting, that there is out there. There's another guy I watch on Instagram who does forms of martial arts tripping over things, or different forms of martial arts answering the door, or different forms of and he's like clearly a very talented martial artist.
Wow.
But he does the serious ones, including the Drunken Master, which is a very serious technique, to then like silly ones as well, which are kind of good. Like he then like does it like the Jason Bourne style, or the Matrix style version of Kung Fu, and it's kind of like run up a wall to answer the door, just it's completely like a waste of time, but it looks very cool.
It's this idea that basically your erratic style is concealing like what is really carefully planned, executed dance of like blocks, parries, advances. So it does feel a little bit like Matrix, but just even you don't know what you're about to do. I feel like, again, role play wise, I'd be like someone going, please just don't hit me. And it's like, you're just constantly dodging out the way because you're just so apt at just dealing with defenses, but you're all quite worried yourself because you're just like, oh, I don't want to hurt you. And then like, oh, key points, like, hitting that person.
Yeah.
It'd be a fun one to play and like really flavoursome on that.
I think they've done well with this subclass.
I think so too.
Try and actually do it in a very mechanical way, make it kind of work. And I was quite impressed by it because I was like, this is an interesting choice. How are you going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So you start off with bonus proficiency, which I think is a lovely thing straight off, which is you get performance skill, which is, straight away, well, that makes so much sense. That's what you're doing. I would have also liked to have seen actually maybe the opportunity for deception as well in there because, but you can argue that performance and deception do overlap quite a lot. So, but that was all, or just choose a charisma skill of your choice.
I think either or. I think because sometimes because people might not be like very performative. They might just be like, they're trying to get their way through.
It happens in things like Wayne's World or and stuff like that when someone nearly gets hit by 20 different things, moved out the way at the right time. They never get hit by all these things that are crashing in around them or the sort of Deadpoolness or something like that, which they do bring up in this later, the luck thing. But I quite like the idea of it maybe being a deceptive thing. So you look like you're not even performing. You're just deceiving everyone in this sense of like looking like you're not even performing. You're just like walking around and things just miss you,
The only thing I'd say is that because you also get proficiency in brewer's supplies, which we've talked about before, is that it's nice to have proficiency with tools because they give you a little bit more of an additional thing. The only thing I'd say, just because I'm very aware of like, people now, maybe they don't necessarily have a good relationship with alcohol and stuff like that. I appreciate the Drunken Master. It is flavored in this sort of way. You could easily take that out and just be like anything. It could just be that you're super clumsy.
The whole point is you're performing it, isn't it? You're not even, or you're Buster Keaton, aren't you? The building's on you and you're in the hole where the window is when the building falls down. It's that kind of stuff, isn't it?
You're literally playing the fool, as it were, constantly like falling upwards, so to speak.
Yeah, failing forwards, literally. I like how it offers you the opportunity to take it as both a performative thing. You're obviously a talented master of this martial arts, or you could, as you say, play it with this like you're just a lucky fool who actually doesn't know what they're doing. So I like that sort of flavor to it because it does allow for both those.
Yeah, agreed.
As you said, the drunken technique gives you, whenever you learn how to twist and turn quickly as part of your flurry of blows. So whenever you use it, you gain the benefit of disengage action. And your walking speed increases by 10 feet, which two together makes for a very tasty sort of like move in, flurry of blows, I'm out of here, and I'm all over the other side of the board. Amazing. Love it. It's such a good way of bringing that in.
Yeah, I like the idea. It's like, and stay down. Oh, no, they're not. And then just disengage and walk backwards. Absolutely. Yeah, I really like that it really upskills that flurry of blows a lot. And already I think it's quite powerful. Then you have tipsy sway at level 6. So you can move in sudden swaying ways. You gain the following benefits. You can leap to your feet. When you are prone, you can stand up by spending only 5 feet of your movement rather than half your speed, which is incredible. So you do that proper leap up, which no one else can do except a martial artist. And you're like, oh, my core hurts just by looking at you doing that. Yeah. And then redirect attack. So when a creature misses you with a melee attack roll, you can spend 1 key point as a reaction to cause the attack to hit another creature of your choice other than the attacker you see in 5 feet of you. So again, if you're in a brawl, you just basically, it is just spending a thing to just suddenly duck out of the way. Yeah. It goes and carries on and hits the other person that's behind you.
Thinking like Jackie Chan movies as well, like particularly where he, someone moves out of the way and he accidentally hits someone else and he kind of looks, he does the fourth wall break, look to the camera like, that wasn't meant to happen, but I'll take it, sort of move. It sort of hits the other person. You're like, oh yeah, I'll take that. I love this one so much. I really love the way they brought the thematic into it. It's really good. And Drunkard's Luck, which is at 11th level, you seem to get a lucky bounce at the right moment. When you make an ability check, an attack roll, or even a saving throw and have disadvantage on the roll, you can spend 2 key points to cancel the disadvantage for that roll. Now, I think that's good. I just think it could be better. I think you should be able to gain advantage for 2 key points as well. It means you can use 2 key points to either gain advantage or to disbar disadvantage, and it does not stack. And that's what I agree. That's the only thing I'd add.
Either you cancel out disadvantage or you gain advantage, but it is the 2 key points that spend, and yet you can't spend 4 key points to just cancel it out. And then I definitely see that because it makes sense, especially because when you think of other feats like Lucky, where you can re-roll stuff as well, it gets to a point where it gets a bit tricky to sort of like, okay, so which roll goes first? You have to work out the order of where things go.
But it does allow you to put yourself in positions of disadvantage, which I think is really interesting, which kind of works with the idea. And it's sort of like allows you to be quite tanky. There's 2 points to this. One is like, yes, you're going to be moving around the board a lot. you might be finding yourselves in positions where you might be at disadvantage potentially, but my thinking is you probably won't, because you can disengage from anyone at any time quite regularly, which is one thing that's kind of amazing to do. But on top of that, because you're going to be moving around the board a lot, you can be very strategic about being in advantage a lot of the time, because you could be flanking people, you could be moving. Like, that's the benefit of a rogue, is to always be finding the advantage. Like, that's the whole point of being a rogue when you're being tactical. That's why I kind of feel like actually maybe just luck in the old-fashioned form of the feat, where it is for 2 key points you can re-roll a roll.
Yeah,
perfect. After you've seen it, even like luck, and you have a number equal to your proficiency bonus or whatever like that, I think would actually be the better solution, because it's really like, there's a lot of times you could be advantaged, but if you could then get luck on that advantage and you utilize that and maybe make it a few more key points to do that, would be more beneficial, because I think personally you will be always constantly finding the advantage compared to other classes.
Because you've got so much movement at this stage, you're just going to be just running rings around everyone else.
So you could either find yourself like pushing yourself out on your own a lot and ending up in situations which may be at disadvantage because you're pushing your luck a little bit. But I also think if you were tactical enough, you wouldn't need to. It's kind of what I'm getting at. So yeah.
And then with level 17 feat you get for this class, you get Intoxicated Frenzy. You gain the ability to make an overwhelming number of attacks against a group of enemies. When you use your flurry of blows, you can make up to 3 additional attacks, up to a total of 5. Provided that each flurry of blows is targeting a different creature this turn. That's so cool. I can imagine, again, if you're being swarmed, if it's like that final boss you're getting swarmed with.
That's what I love about it. That's the thing that makes it, is that final sentence, because otherwise you're just like, okay, you get more attacks, which probably should be level 20, but this makes the difference by the fact that you have to target a different creature this turn, creature, each flurry of blows, which I think is really great, because it is that idea of like the classic cartoon thing is that you make cartoon characters and like comic book characters look amazing, as you put 20-30 people against one and they all take their turn, don't they? They all stand there, fight, and then the other lot are just taking their turn, waiting to jump in. Thinking about like that first scene in the new Batman movie, or when he's in the club. I mean, again, another freaking ace movie.
Very cool.
Very cool movie. It's that kind of thing. And so, love it for that reason.
Yeah, just the idea that you're getting swarmed by the minions, and then you do, like, again, a Matrix style, like you get the rod, you swing around it, and you just punching or kicking people as you make a big sweep. Just so cool.
I think there could be a better name for it. It's the only thing I'd say. I think Intoxicated Frenzy just sounds like intoxication. I don't know, but like, I just think not even that. I just think get rid of that and just call it like frenzy. I feel
like frenzy makes more sense.
Frenzied attack or something like that. I don't know.
I
did like the name, and not as much for the connotations, because there is those, but also it just, I don't think it has a good ring to it.
It's a bit. I agree with that. I don't know what else I would replace it with, because obviously it is just that sudden like looseness of punching constantly or kicking constantly. So frenzy makes sense,
but also it doesn't feel like when I'm intoxicated, I have not got frenzy. I want to go to sleep.
So like, you and I don't do this. We don't never get to level 17 on this one.
It just doesn't feel like the two terms are kind of contradictory in some respects, and also it doesn't feel like actually it is a frenzy, but it's not really, because it's quite controlled.
Yes.
And so frenzy feels very much right for barbarians, like frenzy rage and stuff like that. So I just feel like it should be just like something along the lines of just like speed and attack and precision.
So the next one then from Xanathars is the Way of the Kensai. I'll be honest, I feel this is the least interesting one to me, the Way of the Kensai. All it is that these monks, they train with their weapons relentlessly to the point where the weapons become part of the body. So instead of just using your fists to do flurry of blows, you can use your sort of Kensai weapon to do anything. And you can get quite a few weapons. It sort of gives you that extra feature at certain levels as well. And I'm like, I get it. I know it's trying to emulate certain martial fighting styles and stuff like that. I just find it a bit tedious personally, after we've had some really cool, interesting subclasses. I don't know if anyone has used this particular one, unless you put into your backstory something about the Kensai weapons being truly magical, or like there's a connection, something to it. For me, it just left me cold, I'll be honest.
It felt a bit like we haven't got one that has weapons. That's kind of what it feels like. It's just like, we need one with weapons. Can you make it? And someone would, okay, I can make it. As you said, it's like really lacking depth and sort of story behind it and narrative to it, which and as you said, maybe like, think of Pact of the Blade or Eldritch Knights, those sorts of ones that come to mind as like better magical weapon style things. Obviously, yes, those are, well, both of them are kind of warlocky in their own way, aren't they? But one of them comes from the fighter stance. And it feels like you could have added that to this by making it not just like, oh, it's monks, but with weapon choices. It's monks, but with a really cool way of making a weapon choice. Like Blade Singer, for example, in Wizards is like, oh, it's wizards but with blades. But it's not as simple as like, oh, it's a wizard but you have proficiency in blades, which is basically what this is. It's you're a wizard who uses blades in the sort of Yondu way.
Yes.
Sort of thing, which is very cool. So third level, your special martial arts training leads you to the master of the use of certain weapons. It includes instructions in the deft strokes of calligraphy or painting. You gain the following benefits. You choose 2 types of weapons to be your Kensai weapons, one melee and one ranged. Okay. Each of these weapons can be simple or martial that lacks both the heavy and special properties. So that leaves you with quite a lot of options out there.
Yeah, pretty good.
The longbow is also a valid choice, it says, for some reason, which is fine. You gain proficiency with these weapons if you don't already have it, and they act as monk weapons for you. When you reach 6th, 11th, and 17th, we'll come on to those, you choose another type of weapon, either melee or ranged, to be a Kensai weapon for you, following the criteria as above. You also get agile parry. When you make an unarmed strike as a part of the attack action on your turn, when you're holding the weapon, you can use it to defend yourself, and then you gain +2 bonus to AC, which is very much like the parry you can take as a starting thing for fighting. There's another option on that, isn't it? You can also take parry.
There's like bardic flourishes that do something similar that's till the end of your next turn.
Exactly, yeah. Like minor shield.
Yeah, I think the thing is with those other ones, though, you can roll a die and like a D8 or something. I think that's the bardic one. And it's very cool because then you could be like, oh, okay, I've rolled a 7, so I add +7 to my armor class with the risk of like, you could also get just a 1. I'd like to see this as we go up the levels that you gain higher in, I don't know, AC for that, perhaps. And maybe that's just too game breaky, but it just feels like, because this doesn't change at all.
I think +2 is still pretty good, to be honest. But I totally agree. You think maybe it could work its way up to the same as shield, because why not? Because this is the whole point of it,
because shield spell, that's a +5, isn't it?
Yeah, so
yeah, absolutely. Cool. I'd get us up to then.
And then you get Kensai Shot is basically, here's your version of this, but for your ranged weapon. And again, maybe that's your argument as well, is like, hey, you don't get the ranged benefit. You cannot take a ranged weapon, but you can make that +2 or +4 or +5 to the AC.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a way to like balance it out. But with this, you can use a bonus to make a ranged attacks with a Kensai weapon more deadly. When you do so, any target you hit with a ranged attack using a Kensai weapon takes an extra 1d4 damage of the weapon's type. You retain this benefit at the end of the current turn, which makes you basically Bloodborne, which is actually fucking cool, because you've got your weapon in one hand, your one-handed crossbow in the other hand, and you're just like parry, shoot, deal damage, and I love the combat in Bloodborne so much more because of that, the guns and stuff like that added into it. So if you're a big fan of that, this is probably a way. And then the way of the brush, you gain a proficiency with your choice of calligrapher's supplies or painting supplies, which is very cool. And again, flavor, and
it gets that additional, like, what do they do in their downtime? But yeah, I feel like, again, the Kensai Shot, literally, as you said, like, it would be very cool to it just level a little bit. I don't know about yourself when you're playing these games. The Kensai weapons, of choosing another one, I tend to stick to, like, because I'm just very boring, I stick to like one weapon.
To be honest, it's very true. And even in most things, like video games, everything like that, I'm very much like, I found myself the thing that works for me.
And then if you get something that's better, you then reattune to that. So that's the only thing I'd say, is that when you get another weapon, you can retune to it. That's the only, I don't know.
Again, Pact of the Blade sort of stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Pact of the blade always changes to whatever magical, you just absorb the magical weapon that you've got, don't you? And then it converts to whatever blade. But I know Kim Richards in High Rollers, Erois, had this. Tiangong was the name of her blade, which was her patron. But she was Way of the Tome, but whatever. I think there was Way of the Tome, but Pact of the Blade. And the Blade Pact meant that whenever she wanted to have like a magical property, she found a sword that had a hammer in it that had heat metal. It would cast heat metal whenever you attacked. And so she could absorb that ability into the blade that she always has. So I would argue that maybe that this is why it probably needs to be more magical, is that you maybe choose your weapon of choice, but if you ever find something cooler, you imbue that energy. We've already got in the monks this idea of artistry being put in there because you get proficiencies in artist tools or something. I can't remember.
Something like that.
You do already get one, or it says to choose one, but I think, what if you got proficiency in making stuff? I can't remember what the tool would be, but like making weapons.
Like smithing.
Smith tools, yeah. So because maybe you have this ability to forge your blade, and it's about forging the blade. And in that, if you ever find something of power, using your key, you can spend 8 hours overnight or an attunement slot time to forge, like remelt down your blade or your axe, and then imbue it with the magical properties or the runic symbols of the other blade to transfer its essence over to your chosen blade or something like that.
Yeah.
Add all this flavor to this sort of like idea of craft, which definitely comes into monks, but also in a way that is so much more thematic to this.
It definitely feels very animated, what you described there, that idea of almost like you suddenly just get a whole melting down of various different blades that you've just collected, and you just get bigger and bigger and bigger, like proper like cloud sword-esque, and just big size.
Adding materia slots.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that. Next up is one with the blade. So at level 6, you extend your key into your Kensai weapons, granting you the following benefits. So you got magic Kensai weapons. Your attacks count as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance and immunity, which makes sense because I think roughly around this point your fists also become magical as well. And then Death Strike. You spend 1 key point to cause the weapon to deal extra damage to a target equal to your martial arts die, but you can only do this once per turn.
Great.
Nice, like that. And obviously that goes up, that scales up as well as you go up further and further at the levels.
The next level is Sharpen the Blade, which is at 11th level, you gain the ability to augment your weapons further with your key. So as a bonus action, you can expend up to 3 key points to grant one of those weapons a bonus to its attack and damage rolls. The bonus equals the number of key points you spend. So this lasts for 1 minute or until you use this feature again, which I think is great because 1 minute is 10 rounds of combat.
It's a long time.
That means what's the point in having a +3 weapon? Because I can have a +3 weapon now for 3 key points. And that is great. And that overcomes that idea. I do like more of this sort of this way of the blade way of doing it. And maybe you could make this something else about stacking your martial die in a different way and allowing you to get magical weapons, or you can do one or other.
I wonder, again, being very tricksy, would you go up to like 5 key points just because of that final one we had in the last one, which was 10 D whatevers, you spent 10 key points. I would just think up to 5 would be just a really, because we don't have +5 weapons up, so we only go up to +3. I was just like, fuck it, just give them a +5, and because it's basically because you race through your key points at that point. It's about using the resources on that. So,
but the thing is, you could have your weapon could be a +3 sword, and then you've got +3 on top of that, so it could actually stack.
That's true.
It doesn't say it doesn't stack, so you could make that +6. But I agree, maybe.
I know, maybe I'm just asking for too much because I'm just more.
No, always want more. I think it's better. You want to be cool. I think the last one, does make it cool. Which is 17th level. Grants you extraordinary accuracy. It's called unerring accuracy. If you miss with an attack roll using a monk weapon on your turn, you can re-roll it. You can use this once per turn.
Yes.
Which means you've got advantage. You've got luck once per turn, which is basically what they should have just given to the Drunken Master, as we said again, because obviously clearly it's balanceable here.
And then the final one of Xanathar's Guide to Everything subclasses is the Way of the Sun Soul. We've talked about the Avatar version of 4 elements in the previous episode, but this is like the power of the sun, just being able to pull it. So yes, the monks of the Way of the Sun Soul learns...
It's a lot, isn't it?
It is a bit like learn to channel their life energy into searing bolts of light. I can imagine this being incredibly cool, almost like Mortal Kombat style, just running around an arena. You unleash this light shed by the soul of every living creature. You're like, whoa, pretty intense. The imagery of it is just very, very cool. So at level 3, you get Radiant Sunbolt, so you can hurl searing bolts of magical radiance. You gain a new attack option when you use the attack action. It's a ranged spell attack with a range of 30 feet. You're proficient with it, thankfully. It'll be really awkward if you're like, ha, he, ha, ha, ha. It's like putting this bolt back and forth between you. Add your dexterity modifier to the attack and damage rolls. Damage is radiant. At level 3, you're getting a radiant damage. That's pretty sick. The damage is only a d4. But it changes as you gain monk's levels, as shown on your martial arts column, the sort of martial arts die. So I'm like, okay, that totally makes sense. It's not always going to be at a d4. When you take the attack option on your turn and use a special attack as part of it, you can spend 1 key point to make a special attack twice as a bonus action. So throwing 2 of these little bolts essentially at people. And then when you gain the extra attack feature, the special attack can be used for any of the attacks you make as part of the attack action. So you could just do a general sort of like weapon, etc., and then like bolt, just like It's pretty good.
Pretty freaking good.
Yeah, I would like it.
6th level, Searing Arc Strike. You gain the ability to channel your ki into searing waves of energy immediately after you take the attack action. On your turn, you can spend 2 ki points to cast Burning Hand spell as a bonus action. You hold your hands, touching fingers spread. A thin sheet of flame shoots forth from your outstretched fingertips. Each creature with a 15-foot cone must make a dex saving throw. Creature takes 3d6 fire damage on a failed save or a half on the thing. The fire ignites any flammable objects in the area that aren't being worn or carried. It's not bad as a bonus action, just 3d6 damage to anything in 15-foot cone.
Yeah, and then you spend additional ki points to make it go up a level. So if you, again, that's something, if you just go up and then you just like, actually, there's always like minions behind me, I'm just going to turn around and just like blast them in a cone of fire, just at that one of the highest levels you can do. But it says that here, so the maximum number of ki points is 2 plus any additional points is equal to half your multiplier level. So in total, I think 10 if you're doing it at level 10. Yeah. But yeah, just like, wow.
Pretty good.
Pretty sick. To me, I'm like, just everything's on fire in my mind when I'm looking at this particular class.
Fire. 11th level, Searing Sunburst. You gain the ability an Orb of Light. I'm just thinking of Rasengan, just pulling the Naruto when he makes his little Rasengan. Yeah. That erupts into a devastating explosion, even though that is actually a wind elemental thing. I know this, but I'm just saying. As an action, you magically create an orb and hurl it at a point you choose in 150 feet, where it erupts into a sphere of radiant light for a brief but deadly instant. Ooh. Each creature in a 20-foot radius sphere must succeed on a con save or take 2d6 radiant damage. Creature doesn't need to make the save if it's behind total cover that is opaque. Fair enough. Mm-hmm. You can increase the sphere's damage by spending ki points. Each point you spend to a maximum of 3 increases damage by 2d6, so a maximum of 66 damage. Which is not a lot, but it's something. But it's 20-foot radius, which means there could be a couple of people you can capture in that, which is kind of...
Yeah, that's 40-foot diameter of this sphere, which is amazing.
Yeah.
For me, it feels like almost like a very watered-down version of Fireball to an extent.
Yeah.
Because, you've got the range of it, like 150 feet, that's pretty good. It's something to just, like, explode, like, on a group that's waiting to ambush you or just, at a camp, perhaps. Using the ki, again, to just max the damage out. So, again, it could be a really good ambushing type spell, or just like once doing a surprise round, I thought.
No, that's a really good shout, actually, to be honest. Just like, bosh.
And then finally, at level 17, you have Sun Shield. You become wreathed in a luminous magical aura. You shed a bright light in a 30-foot radius and dim light for an extra 30 feet. You can extinguish or restore this light as a bonus action, because you'd be like, oh, sorry, turn off. If a creature hits you with a melee attack whilst the light shines, you can use your reaction to deal radiant damage to the creature. It is 5 equal to your wisdom modifier. So that you have an aura effect, which not many player characters are able to do, and that's pretty good. I love that. This whole class makes me think of, maybe not an exact like-for-like comparison, but like Phoenix from X-Men, the Jean Grey's alternate thing. It's just like she's just boiling hot, but she's not, I'm a fire elemental or anything like that. It's just her rage and her anger. So maybe that's something I would put into here, because it doesn't talk about emotions per se in this one. I think, again, not to put my own emotions on this, but I feel like if you're holding like bits of fire and you're using like life force energy, I think it's not a peaceful action. So I wonder maybe having that anger or aggression in there somewhat. Again, your mileage may vary, but I just think that'd be interesting.
Reminds me, though, of what I was expecting when I read this to what I didn't get. And you just reminded me of it when I was thinking about it from a while ago, was that I was expecting you to lose hit points in this. The way it was written, I was expecting you use your life energy. I thought you're going to be doing some serious cool shit, but it's going to be hurting you. And it never did that. I kept waiting for it, and it never happened. I don't know if you picked that up, and maybe it was just me, but it's just the way I read it.
I think that's a good point, because obviously we talked about it before, was the way D&D is going forward, it doesn't want to do negative things. But what we quite like is that we don't mind the negative if we're got the risk and the chance of doing something more. So like, obviously Great Weapon Master, they're changing that completely, so you don't have a negative.
But also thinking of like the Bard of Tragedy, Yeah,
I wonder, because it's got these restrictions on of like, you can only use up to 3 key points or something. But it said, well, you could use more, but you have to take some sort of hit points of damage.
I'd like that. Yeah.
Just because you are breaking the game. So it's like, this is a risk. So maybe it's a saving throw with disadvantage, or maybe it's like you take however many levels of like.
You just take 3d6 to give 3d6. It's like, that's it. You roll whatever you take, you give.
Because it is literally like burning energy. I guess it's tricky because, like, again, in the class features, it's like, oh, you're so serene, your body is this, that, and the other. So perhaps it gets resistant a little bit, but I do like the idea of it. So we're moving on to Tasha's now. And here we have two classes, subclasses that we could use for monks. We've got the Way of Mercy and the Way of the Astral Self. Let's do the fun one first. Let's do mercy. The reason I say this is because you very aptly talked about the sort of idea of medicine and like body stuff last time. And this is what this class is kind of about.
We mentioned it briefly last week, didn't we? You said it does come up in this one.
Monks of the Way of Mercy, they learn to manipulate the life force of others to bring aid to those in need. They are wandering physicians to the poor and the hurt. Those who follow the Way of Mercy might be members of a religious order, administrating to the needy and making grim choices rooted in reality rather than idealism. They are the masked bringers of macabre mercies. Tasha's does such a lot more effort in like, here's what they are like compared to the ones before. And I think what I like about this is that I think compared to the Long Death, which feels a little bit like maybe selfish, perhaps all the abilities are like, oh, if you drop to 0 hit points, you spend a key point, you come back up. Here feels a bit more communal, your thing, as from the way it sort of talks about giving medicine. And this idea, again, in that first one, the Implements of Mercy, the cool sort of flavoursome thing is you get a cool death mask that you can wear. So instantly you're like, ooh, this is Percy from Critical Role.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is, isn't it? The Raven mask, or like, your doctor's plague mask, or a skull. That's just lovely, isn't it? Merciful. That's a merciful mask.
We just picked it up cheap from the shops. But I think this is what I find interesting, is because ultimately, as much as we love obviously the NHS and the doctors and stuff like that, they are kind of neutral, really. Like, they bring good news, but they also bring bad news. So this idea that I feel like any character playing this is probably of a neutral alignment, even though you're trying to help people. And I just think all the others I can easily say like, oh yeah, this maybe is more chaotic perhaps, or this is definitely good in question marks. Here you could definitely be like, oh, a Way of Mercy, but play it a little bit more conniving, maybe a bit more nefarious, or play it more good, but maybe it changes from day to day. You want to bring people back, but you can't because this is their time, etc.
But maybe you do the AI gone wrong thing, which is you think you're doing mercy because the world's dying, and so you kill everyone because you're like, the world is dying, and the only way for the world to survive is if we depopulate or something like that, which is a classic AI trick. That could be the way you bring it to an evil alignment if you wanted to. I don't know if you want to.
Misguided agenda.
But misguided agenda, exactly.
So going back to the Implements of Mercy, it's at level 3. You just gain proficiency in the insight and medicine skills, which is something that you were looking at before. You also gain proficiency in the herbalism kit, fine. And then, you get the special mask. As you sort of said, there's one of Ravens, there's one of a crying visage, and there's one of a laughing visage, almost like a theatre-esque type one. I'd love it to have a laughing visage and be like, it's actually like a clown doctor. One of those terrifying, your face.
Like in BoJack Horseman, clown dentist.
Yeah, clown dentist, exactly. Or even have there's one that's just a butterfly mask, which makes me think of face painting. You just painted a butterfly mask and goes, I'm very sorry to tell you that you only have a couple of hours to live, and it's just like this beautiful butterfly that's just on your face. I don't know.
Yeah. There's no way to cut this cake. It's creepy. That's all it is. Basically, Fiona's already made a character.
Yeah, I will say this is my favourite subclass, absolutely.
No shit. Hand of Healing, 3rd level. As your mystical touch can mend wounds. As an action, you can spend 1 key point to touch a creature and restore a number of hit points equal to a roll of your martial arts die plus your wisdom modifier.
Yeah.
When you use your flurry of blows, you can replace one of the unarmed strikes with a use of this feature without spending a key point for the healing, which I think is pretty cool.
That's so cool.
Something we said felt like it was missing from some of the other ones, and something that you should be able to do as a baseline.
But then on top of that, you have Hand of Harm. So when one gives and one gives away. So when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can spend 1 key point to deal necrotic damage equal to 1 roll of your martial die plus your wisdom. You can only use this feature once per turn. So you can't constantly keep hitting him like he's already dead. You can't do that. Yeah, I just thought it is such a cool thing that one hand is healing and one hand is necrotic. Again, it comes back to that long death thing as well, thinking about the radiant damage as well. I think that's maybe what was missing from the long death.
Now I've got Mr. Garrison.
From South Park.
What's this little hand puppet called?
It's called Mr. Hat.
Mr. Hat, that's it, yeah. Oh, Mr. Hat, he don't like you. He's going to harm you now. It's kind of like you've already got your freaky clown mask on, then you've got your hand with this puppet on it. Is it harm or is it healing?
What's that, Mr. Flibble? Oh, we can't do that. Who would clear up all the mess?
That's the misguided one, isn't it? This is you're like, oh no, he doesn't like it. It's so creepy.
This is it. Yeah, we've changed what is a really cool it's into silly
it's some really creepy person with sock puppets.
We didn't think we'd go here in this episode.
We have both made monks and ruined monks.
Yes, yeah. Then you have at level 6, Physician's Touch.
Yeah.
You can administer even greater cures with a touch, and if you feel it's necessary, use your knowledge to cause harm. So when you use the Hand of Healing on a creature, you can also end one disease or one of the following conditions of blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poisoned, or stunned. But if you use the Hand of Harm, you can subject that creature to the poison condition to the end of your next turn. So I do think that's all right.
You could go for a preacher now, couldn't you? You could think of a preacher who's like, I heal you.
Yeah.
You know, this sort of like
I
really
take it
like
away.
touch.
Yes.
Yeah, take it away. Exactly.
I could just imagine there's an argument for you like, well, why can't we do like blinded and deafened on a character giving it? But maybe that's straying into like, that's a bit, it could be a bit icky perhaps in terms of like lines and veils and stuff.
But the stunned one, well, I don't know. You just think because you do that in Stunning Strike, don't you? So it kind of feels like
I
you
think
could just
stunning's already happened, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think the poison condition is good.
It's a good one.
I think that's great on that front.
It's continuous as well. Then you get Flurry of Healing and Harm. Heal, 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 heal. It's just like running. You could just see them. Everyone, stand in the line. I'm going to run down the thing, just like, you're healed, you're healed, you're healed, you're healed, you're healed. Dave, I'm sorry, you're harmed. Healed, 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 harmed.
High-fiving your way across.
Exactly, yeah.
When you use Glory of Blows, you now replace each of the unarmed strike with a use of your healing hand without spending key points for the healing. Amazing. So yeah, so you're just literally, you might be doing a quick attack and then you're like, to me, and then just like, patting people on the back going, good job, good job, good job.
Good job. Yeah. Good game, good game, good game.
Good game, yeah. And then if you use Hand of Harm with that strike, you do it without spending a key point, but you can still only use it once per turn because otherwise it is pretty much like death to everyone, like just like smacking people's faces. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just thinking about you remember the craze of happy slapping back in the day that people would just record it? I don't know. That's what I feel now with this particular monk.
I feel like it seems a bit silly. It's not the same, but it's fine.
I think maybe twice a turn, perhaps.
I just think you just do it. Well, I don't know, but
it's at level 11. That's the thing, I guess.
I've got like another way to play this character, right?
Yeah.
Which is you act like the hand has its like a mind of its own, okay? Mm-hmm. But the only way you figure out if it's going to be heal or harm is you have to do like rock paper scissors
against the DM.
If you win, you get to choose. If you don't, the DM it gets to be whatever you say what you want to do. So you say I want to heal, and you go rock paper scissors. If you lose, it does the opposite. If you win, you get it.
I really like that. Anything like that where you get to play with a different game within the game, 100%. Finally, at level 17, you get the Hand of Ultimate Mercy.
I have ultimate mercy.
Yeah, there's a sort of a downbeat on that thing.
Yeah.
Your Mastery of Life Energy opens the door to the Ultimate Mercy. So as an action, you can touch a corpse of a creature that has died in the last 24 hours and expend 5 key points. They return to life, regaining a number of hit points equal to 4d10 plus your wisdom modifier. If it died while subject to any of the following conditions, it revives them with it being removed. But you can only do this once per long rest. How cool is that?
That is a really great revivify spell. You know, that is really good.
Even Incarnation, there's the chance that you come back as someone else that changes stuff. And also there's the cost components as well. So, and 5 key points at level 17 as well. You've got quite a few of them. So it's not bad. I think, and as an action, just bringing them back in battle, you're like, not today, like slam, go.
You need the like,
yeah, the ECG, like, boop.
You know what I like about it is that we've come up with such a range of different ways to play these monks, and I think that it just shows how diverse the characters can be. To like the way that they've made so many different types of actual subclass that are kind of span so many actual different facets of like just gameplay mechanics. I think just underlying a monk to make any sort of type of character is really fun. And something we found out in Dragon's Duel a lot was that even if you have a really bad skill for the actual skill you need, there's always a subclass in most classes, which you can make a blade singer if you've got good strength and a wizard, but you've got terrible intelligence. You can run a blade singer, or you've got a really high intelligence rogue with no dex. You can arcane trickster it, for example. Yeah. And with this, it's kind of like, well, there's so many different types of play in a monk that there's a similarity in the sense that you've got a point management system a bit like sorcerers, and it is martial consistently, but on that it's like, well, do you want to be martial but you're also dealing loads more damage? Do you want to be martial and a bit creepy? Do you want to be martial and a bit spooky? Do you want to be martial and a bit healy? Do you want to be martial and all about but druidic? Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many different ways,
aspects to it. Yeah,
and one of the ones that we've done that I've kind of come to and been surprised by consistently.
One thing I'd say is that I think all these subclasses, there's been something in every one of them, even if I thought like one of them's been a bit maybe not as good as the others because it doesn't appeal to me. I've gone, actually all of this there's something for it. But it's not one where I'm like, why would I ever play this class? And that's what I'm sort of going up for. That said, we're about to come to the way of the astral self, which is fine. I definitely think it's that sort of like very stereotypical meditation, going beyond yourself. It's the great old one or whoever it is. I can't remember their name, unfortunately. In Doctor Strange, that idea of like connecting to different versions of themselves. So they believe that their body is an illusion and that
The ancient one?
The ancient one, thank you. Yes, the great old one's Cthulhu. So that, I mean, I don't know. Spoilers for the Doctor Strange. Yeah, absolutely. Their key is representative of their true form, which is the astral self. The capacity to be a force of order or disorder.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot to it. There's some nice things about the fact that the astral self that you envisage doesn't have to be a representation of the physical body of your character, and talks about, a lanky human having a minotaur as his astral self because he feels the strength within, or an orc having a delicate visage and gossamer thin arms because it's about the gentle beauty of their soul, which I think is a really lovely little piece to add to it. You get some fun things. The arms of the astral self, which you get 3rd level, you master your key allows you to summon a portion of it. As a bonus action, you can spend a key point to summon the arms of the astral self. When you do so, each creature of your choice that you can see within 10 feet
pretty big.
must make a dex save or take force damage equal to 2 rolls of your astral arts die, which is quite a lot. For 10 minutes, these spectral arms hover near your shoulders and surround your arms. You determine their appearance. They vanish early if you're incapacitated or die. While the spectral arms are present, you gain the following benefits. You can use your wisdom modifier in place of your strength modifier when making strength checks and strength save throws. Again, proving that there is always a subclass for whatever stats you got, because you can build this as a wisdom build, not a strength build which is interesting. You can use your spectral arms to make unarmed strikes. When you make an unarmed strike with the arms in your turn, you reach for it is 5 feet greater than normal, which is great. And your unarmed strikes makes you, with the arms you use for your wisdom modifier in place of strength or dex modifier for the attack and damage rolls. Again, just allowing you to build your wisdom build, and that's it. And they're around for 10 minutes, which is 100 rounds of combat. You just need to use 1 key point every time you want to have a fight, and you've got a wisdom build based monk, which I think is kind of cool.
And the damage is force damage as well, which again,
nothing is resistant to, basically.
How cool is that?
Exactly. At 3rd level. And you've got a 10-foot range, pretty much.
Again, I'm feeling very sort of anime here. Let's just again that sort of power pushing people out and stuff. I guess the only thing I'd say with this is that if you got it around for 10 minutes, that's really cool. But that indicates to me that you would maybe use these arms to do stuff out of combat, perhaps. And there isn't anything specifically saying about that maybe you get advantages on climb checks or going up a rope. I don't know. It just, that's the only thing I'd say is that certainly the arms is definitely sort of a combat thing. I just thought, well, if you got them around for 10 minutes, that's a long time. Yeah. Especially at level 3 as well. Maybe it should be a minute and then 10 minutes later. I don't know. Yeah.
I think because then you could use it also for like out of combat things with the 10 minutes, because 1 minute, not many things go over 10 rounds of combat anyway. So why not make it a long enough period that you could maybe use them as like, oh, I want to climb this wall, or I want to do something, I want to grab, I can reach now 10 foot, I can go up a whole story with my arms, sort of thing, pull me up.
Sorry, it does say you can use your wisdom modifier in place of your strength modifier when making strength checks and saving throws. I just wondered if maybe you just get advantage on those instead.
Yeah, I think the wisdom modifier, I find it's an interesting, I just like the alternate way of the build, really. That's kind of the thing. But yeah, I think you're right, you could either do one or the other.
I mean, ultimately, you're still getting to use those on checks and stuff, so that makes sense.
If you want to go down that sort of insightful feat, wisdoms are really great for saving throws as well, because having that so much more important than some other ones. Dex is always very good as well, but if you were just going for more of a Dex wisdom build than a Dex strength build or something like that, I don't know, it's kind of allows you more flexibility. What it does make me think of, though, that I think you could re-flavor it, and thinking back to the Kensai, was that it makes you think of like the awesome blades that you see in anime. Like there are some where they're like really extending blades, or like magical blades. Or like, I'm thinking of Bleep, where you have your like hollow and stuff like that. I don't know. There were kind of different things along those lines. Or like Dark Souls, where you've got, or Bloodborne, when you've got like blades that get bigger. You have like a bigger version of your blade. You have a blade. There's the Kirkenhammer is my favorite one, which is like a blade. And then you kind of like, and you turn it into a huge hammer that you can like whack people with. And then it slides down and becomes just a sword, which is very cool. You could take all the same stuff, get rid of the wisdom if you don't want to, or say that the wisdom is because it's a magical weapon effect and you're imbuing your weapon with magic, and you're utilizing your wisdom in this sort of like ascended form of a weapon. Do you know what I mean? So it's you've got a blade and it can hit 5 feet, but then you go ultimate super magic blade. And it's like, I've now got the Cloud Strife blade. I've now got 10-foot range, and I'm just like, hitting everything. And I think that's kind of cool as a way. And it does force damage instead of your thing. And I think that could just be kind of like, I just think that was my only other way of building it.
Then moving on to the visage of the astral self. So this is where you can summon a visage of yourself as a bonus action or as part of a bonus action you take to activate the arms. So this is building on the arms of the astral self. You spend 1 key point to summon this visage for 10 minutes. It vanishes early if you are incapacitated or die. It covers your face like a helm or a mask, and you get the following benefits, which is astral sight, which means you can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical, to a distance of 120 feet. Pretty good. Wisdom of spirits, you have advantage on wisdom, insight, and charisma intimidation checks because you just appeared with massive f-off arms and a huge, like, almost helm on your face.
Wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man,
and that is terrifying in itself. That's no wonder you get an advantage on intimidation checks. And then finally, you get word of spirit as part of this feature. So when you speak, you can direct your words to a creature of your choice that you can see within 60 feet of you, making it so only that creature can hear you. Alternatively, amplify your voice so that all creatures within 600 feet of you can hear you. It's a nice, cool little role play thing. They don't get to speak back to you. It's not like message. It's not like sending or anything like that. It's just that you could whisper someone, so you could be directing people around the battlefield. But also, I love the idea is like I could be team distraction force by going in and booming and like 600 feet, like come to me, like just look at me, etc.
But I think you've got intimidation checks. I would say you could be like, "We're gonna kill you." To the enemy. Do you know what I mean? To the enemy, it's like
threats.
You can't do it. You won't be able to hit. You just give up. You just give up. Like that.
Don't bother. It's not worth it. They're not worth it. Yeah, exactly.
And you could be doing that and then saying, can I use that feature? And then at that time, and my main action is intimidating, and I get advantage on those.
Yeah.
I get advantage on intimidation checks. I want them to be intimidated by me. And therefore, I think that's kind of fine.
And then body of the astral self at level 11. So when you have both your astral arms and visage summon, you can also cause the body of your astral self to appear. No action required. It just covers your physical form like a suit of armor. Basically, you're just, again, building up on the arms, the visage, and then now the body. You gain the following benefits. Deflect energy. So when you take acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, or thunder damage. So you get force damage in there as well. You can use a reaction to deflect it. When you do so, it's basically like almost like that catching missiles one, deflect missiles, which is 1d10 plus your wisdom modifier reduction to 1, which is pretty cool. Just like basically neoing like no, and just having the acid or the force damage, all that sort of thing, just stop or dissipate in the air. Pretty cool. And then you also get empowered arms once on each of your turns. When you hit a target with your arms from that first sort of level, you can deal extra damage essentially, which is equal to your martial die, just empowering them up, and up.
So what this is making me also think of, because I've been writing a script for a video I was going to do on my Warhammer channel, which is about how can you role play Warhammer. And what this made me think of is I was trying to think of like D&D. So I said there were so many things, but I might actually pick this one out particularly to mention. Say you wanted to be playing someone who is being afflicted by demonic possession, like in that game, you're being warped by chaos. So it's not possession, it's actually you just get warped to become demonic by the warp energies, and you've been farting about with the warp because that's the astral self for Warhammer. And so what you're gaining is you're not gaining these astral arms. Your arms are just growing additional limbs. Whoa. You've just grown this extra demonic hand that holds this like fiery blade, and then your face just becomes this warped vision of like demonic face that's just like
moves without you moving,
whispering to them with these demonic words, and you're able to like intimidate them and read their insight. You can flavor it, and your sight is you can see through magical darkness because you are a demon now. And then later, give me all this energy. I will take your energy and I will bring it back on you. I will deflect it. And then empowered arms is just like your arms now have got like these huge claws that have come out, and they're like dripping with demon ichor. Sorry, it's just getting dark, but you can feel like this is very cool and thematic, but you could flavor this like you're being empowered with some sort of other energy, be that radiant, you want to be like becoming angelic, or you could be becoming demonic or devilish, or make it that you're becoming more bestial. You could play this as a form of werewolf transformation. You could but you're losing yourself to the beast in that form of, I've been reading up on Vampire the Masquerade, so that beast mechanic in it where you start to you get lost to the beast. So maybe in that sense that you're like a vampire or you're a oni or something of the, you know, ilk that you want to transform into, you could do that as a way of this. And maybe the key points, you have no choice in it. Maybe you have to use that key point because you're losing yourself.
Yeah, it's a constant sort of battle between you, who is in control, very much like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type thing, perhaps.
I've done this quite a bit with the hand, like, you know, they've all got a bit dark. I'm sorry, but I'm hanging out with Fiona too much. That's the problem.
Again, it could make for a really interesting, because before, like I said before, I felt like, oh, this is more reflective, maybe just like I'm of a higher self, but actually, is it?
Yeah.
You, is it, or is it something else? So again, Lines and Veils, Session Zero is all about setting expectations, but that could be a really interesting one.
I don't know if you've seen Bleach, becoming a hollow, you know, you're slowly becoming one. And so it overtakes you. And that kind of is where it kind of comes to my mind as well. So like, yeah, I feel make it darker if you want to.
And then finally, you have level 17, Awaken Astral Self. So your connection to your astral self is complete.
Uh-oh.
Yes, uh-oh. Like level 100. You allow yourself to unleash the full potential. So as a bonus action, you spend 5 key points to summon everything. Was it your astral self and awaken it for 10 minutes? It only ends if you incapacitated or die, but you gain +2 to your armor class and an astral barrage. Whenever you use the extra attack feature to attack twice, you can instead attack 3 times if all the attacks are made with your astral arms. Yeah. Pretty cool. I feel like the armor of spirit +2 to armor class. I was like, yeah, I guess, but I wonder maybe having like because you literally are bringing this self to you. It's that absorbing elements type thing from the deflect energy. I wonder if you just get an immunity to something.
You heal off that energy.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You don't take any damage. You just you can add that to yourself.
That's all. Or temporary hit points. Or
temporary hit points.
It's an interesting one. I think I out of the two of them, I do much prefer Mercy from Tasha's, but I do think after our discussion now, I'm like, oh, actually, we could really go into
now I made it dark. That's why I feel it's like,
oh, but maybe what about? I'm like the Tim Burton of things, like as it has to be a dark twist, and maybe Johnny Depp turns up.
Johnny Depp's in it, yeah. Exactly.
Oh no. Let's move on to our penultimate subclass then, from Fizzbands.
Yay!
One of our favourite books. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. We're going to look at The Way of the Ascendant Dragon.
Yes, the dragon god Bahamut is known to travel the material plane in the guise of a young monk. The legend says that he founded the first monastery of the Way of the Ascendant Dragon in this guise. The fundamental teaching of this tradition holds that by emulating dragons, a monk becomes a more integrated part of the world and its magic. By altering their spirit to resonate with draconic might, monks who follow this tradition augment their prowess in battle, bolster their allies, and can even soar through the air on draconic wings. Heck yes.
Heck yeah.
All this power is in service of a greater goal, achieving a spiritual unity with the essence of the material plane. So, pretty cool.
I think in the later books, like Tasha does it a little bit, but certainly in Fizzbands, it talks about where the origin is. It's got a great little origin table for where, how did you came by it, which again, I think we're big fans of just tables giving us more stuff to ways to think about. And I think a D6 is enough for us to get on with. You've got stuff like a dragon personally took an active role in shaping your inner energy, which I love. Is like, just like, good morning, come out. We're about to start training. You're like, who are you? And you go, we'll find out. Come, climb, we'll fly, and I will tell you all about you. You are the chosen one, etc.
Yeah.
All the way to, like, you just find a scroll written in Draconic that contained inspiring new techniques. So I like that. Yet you're a fan from afar. You go and visit people who are Ascendant Dragon monks, and you're like, oh, yeah, me too. And they're like, how? Like, you're not trained under us. And you're, oh, no, I did some reading, so it's a little bit different.
I like it. I like the one I'd be like is you grew up amongst dragons. They try and teach you the ways of the way they learn to fight. They didn't know how to raise you, the sort of like Jungle Book style story, but with dragons. Yeah. And you learn to like fly with them. Just because I want dragon friends.
Dragon friends.
Draconic disciple. 3rd level. You can channel draconic power to magnify your presence and imbue your unarmed strikes with the essence of a dragon's breath. You gain the following benefits. So draconic presence gives you, if you fail a intimidation or persuasion check, you can use your reaction to reroll as you tap into the mighty presence of dragons. You can use one per long rest once it has actually succeeded. So if it fails, you don't lose it.
Yeah.
Draconic Strike, you can imbue acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison damage. You can change your damage type to one of those, sorry. And then the Tongue of Dragons is that you learn to speak, read, and write Draconic or one other language of your choice.
Nice. I do like that Draconic presence, like only when it succeeds. So you're not like, oh, what a waste. You know, certainly at such an early level. I think more stuff should have that.
I agree.
Then you don't waste it. So yeah, no, I quite like that.
Breath of the Dragon as well at 3rd level, you can channel destructive waves of energy like those created by the dragons you emulate. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of your attacks with an exhalation of draconic energy in either a 20-foot cone or a 30-foot line that is 5 foot wide. Your choice. So it's just like, wah or boo, basically. Choose a damage type, acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison. Each creature that must dex save against your key save DC, and taking damage of the chosen type equal to 2 rolls of your martial die. Pretty good on a fail save.
Yeah.
Feature increases to 3 rolls of your martial die 11th, which is pretty good.
I also like how you can really customize the breath, because that's it. With certain dragons, it is always like, I think it's blue dragons because it's lightning breath, but that's always going to be in a line 5 feet. Whereas here you could be like, well, I want it to be a cone instead. I quite like the change in between them.
You also get a proficiency bonus number of times equal to that is how many times you can use it. And if you have run out, you can use 2 key points to use it again.
Yeah, you're like, I'm running on low. I'm going to have to take
dragon fire breathing. I mean, pretty cool.
I really like this as a level 3 ability.
Well, 3 feature 20-foot cone fire breath is badass.
And I know later on as well, it gets enhanced as well to be even like wider.
Yeah, does it even get wider as well at 11th?
Later on it does. Yeah. The augment breath in level 17.
Cool. So what's next? What's at level 6?
Level 6, we have wings unfurled. So when you use your Step of the Wind, you can unfurl spectral draconic wings from your back that vanish at the end of your turn. As a result, you have a flying speed equal to your walking speed. So it's at the end of your turn. So if you need to get somewhere quick, it is a really quick, fast get out one that you can fly over something. So like if the battlefield is full of enemies and it's not like a way to get around them, that you can just try and fly over, etc. Because I think you will have like that featherfall thing as well eventually from your main class. And again, you can use this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and regain them all on a long rest. I think the only thing I'd say is that because why not? You've got the breath thing to be able to do 2 key points after you've used it all. Why not give them 2 key points and then you can just...
Yeah, I kind of agree with that as well. It felt like it was lacking that one element of gave it for that. I also think that one turn... I don't know.
Maybe to the end of your next turn, perhaps? I don't know.
I'd just say it lasts for a minute.
I don't know. It's quite, I don't know, low level. I don't know. Because
do you get it more later, don't you, I think?
It doesn't get any bigger. It doesn't last any.
I would say at least at like 10th level, you get it for a minute, and at 17th, you get it forever. You just get to use it once a day for an hour or something.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that makes sense.
You can just at will do that at level 20. Like you can fly, you're a dragon, come on.
Yeah, you literally have just shed your human form and become
exactly
a friend of Bahamut, you know.
Because you might as well then just not do this and just be a druid. Like if you really want to be a dragon, be a druid. You know, like it's cool and all, but if that's your ultimate goal in this game,
it's just polymorph and become a dragon.
Just true polymorph into a dragon, you know, or get your friend to be a druid who can true polymorph you into a dragon who is a way of ascendant dragon monk.
Yep. Perfect.
That should be what it should be. You just at level 20, you are true polymorphed into a dragon if you so wish. Like you can take the choice. That's the final right of it is that
you become dragon. Yeah.
You just can become a dragon who has a human form like Fizzbands and you become a dragon. You can, I'm imagining if you are a true polymorphed ancient dragon, you can then also have a humanoid presence because dragons can take a humanoid form.
Maybe that goes back to the epic levels that we talked about previously. Maybe you have to go on some epic quest in order to...
I think you just need to mate with true polymorph. That's literally all you need.
That's all you need. Fair enough.
I love it if you're playing a game and it's like, my character is this person, but I'm going to be playing this other character who's a druid. Now, the reason is because all this character wants to do is be a dragon, and I'm just bringing them along until I can make them a dragon.
Yeah.
Your actual character you want to be at level 20 or whenever you can get true polymorph is just waiting at home. Okay,
and then soon.
Yeah, and then the whole story is you being this druid who's just doing this for their mate. Like, make him really happy. It'll make him really happy.
Really care for them,
and it's like, they've had a tough time, and I'm happy to help help out. I'm a druid, I'm doing my business, I'm here. And that's your whole backstory is you're like, your mate wants to be a true polymorph dragon.
You've seen us behind the scenes of like on The Hobbit where there's Benedict Cumberbatch pretending to be Smaug.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine the person at back home is doing.
That's who my friend is. That's who the friend is. It's Benedict Cumberbatch.
The weird kid in the playground.
Come to the DM's Book Club for the weirdest suggestions for characters ever.
Aspect of the Worm, this is a level 11. Power of your draconic spirit now radiates from you, warding your allies and inspiring fear in your enemies. So for bonus action, you can create an aura of draconic power that radiates 10 feet from you from 1 minute. You get the following effects. Frightful Presence, which sort of expands a little bit. So you create this aura as a bonus action. On subsequent turns, you can choose a creature in the aura. They must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your key save or become frightened for the minute. They can repeat it, obviously, at the end of each turn. Resistance, you can choose a damage type to when you activate this aura, so acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison, and you and your allies have resistance to that damage. So again, really going back into those aura effects as well. Once you create it, though, you can't do it again until you finish a long rest, unless you spend those free key points to create it again. So again, using that key points to be like, let's get it up again, and we've got another fight going on. And I like the idea of using auras not only as a damaging thing, but also as a protective thing. I know paladins do that as well with their like auras of protection and all that sort of thing, or anti-charm ones as well. And then finally, you have level 17 Ascendant Aspect. Your draconic spirit reaches its peak. Your augmented breath, so your breath of the dragon, you can spend 1 key point to augment its shape and power. So this is where you can change the shape of it to be a 60-foot cone or a 90-foot line. And then each creature in that area takes equal to 4 rolls of your martial arts die on a failed save and half as much on a successful save. You get blind sight out to 10 feet, and we know that's pretty decent. And then you got explosive fury. When you activate your aspect of the worm, the draconic fury explodes from you. So you can choose any number of creatures you can see within the aura, and each of those creatures must succeed on a dexterity saving throw against your key save or take 3d10 acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison damage. As a pretty cool way to be like, here's 3 things you can do, and it augments, it again builds up on what we've gone through before. Yeah,
I really like it. I just think they should just give you wings then. I think that's all it's missing.
I feel like the blind sight thing out to 10 feet, I don't know, I'd make it 30 feet. But maybe that's overpowering it way too much. I just feel like by the time you're level 20, you know when things are going around you, because the dragons can just sense. Maybe you're not supposed to be a dragon, even though that's what we're aiming for here. So yeah, it's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I think it's a good one. I think it's a fun thematic one. I think if you want to be a dragon, just be a dragon. But if you don't want to be a dragon and you want to do this is fun, because just breathing fire on people all day is pretty fun, I think, as a way to let out some of the anger of the day.
As a way to get rid of that frustration. Finally, we've come to the end of our subclasses. We've got Way of the Cobalt Soul, which is from the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. Bow, essentially. Yes, this is critical roles. Monk sort of is really tied into the story, basically, of that second campaign. I feel, for me personally, that I really loved the tragedy bard that we looked at when Matt Mercer did that. This is a very similar style, in terms of flavoursome.
Matt knows how to give things and be flavoursome, and The only thing I don't like is the best respected and most heavily guarded repositories of tomes is a sentence I don't like to say. I don't like that wording. That's the only thing I was a bit annoyed about.
Yeah, the Cobalt Soul is one of the best respected and most heavily guarded repositories of tomes, histories, and information in all of Exandria.
It's just a way of writing I found very hard to intonate, to speak out loud. So that was all. But people from all the lands come to the library to seek knowledge, and those particularly dedicated to the virtues of truth often pledge their minds and bodies to the Cobalt Soul cause.
Again, I think I talked about it last time with monks. We're talking about compared to paladins who are here's the tenets of our order, and it gives a little short thing. Here it gives like when you become a member of the Cobalt Soul, what is your purpose? What are you doing? And we've got it a little bit with the ways of mercy and the astral self a little bit, but here it's just you are giving yourself over to be on a quest to dedicate to unveiling life's mysteries and bring light to the secrets of concealed evil and guarding the most powerful and dangerous truths, who unwholesome thirst for knowledge that might bring death and suffering to others. So it's again this sort of secret sort of guardianship.
It's very, again, for the Warhammer thing, it's another one that came to mind is the Inquisition, or if you wanted to play those, the sort of CIA, it's that sort of idea of we know the truth. The truth is out there, but we know it and you don't know it because we don't want you to know it. But also maybe you could, again, if you wanted to go down that sort of route, you could play the corrupted by the evil that you learn, that sort of thing. There's loads of those stories in Warhammer of Inquisitors who start we've got to fight the demon. We have to be the demon. You know what I mean? To fight,
we have to
be evil, sort of thing.
Learn their ways to do stuff. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it says like the tenant of the Cobalt Soul, the embody the maxim, know your enemy. Through tireless research, they steel themselves against the unrelenting tides of evil. So like it's like the unrelenting tides of emails. Sorry,
I mean, that is evil.
And I like this like rigorous training. They learn to break their foes' mental and physical defenses, and then once the fight is done, they record their findings for future generations amongst the study. It's kind of like
learn from my mistake. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. It's heavy training, but also studying the ways of your enemy and maybe utilizing those ways as well to a certain extent, or at least shielding others from those evils.
And you get a couple of more additional features in this class. Again, I think Matt's just very keen to give people things, essentially.
Yeah, very generous DM.
So at level 3, you get extract aspects, which I think is pretty good. When you hit a creature with one of the attacks granted by a flurry of blows, you can analyze it. And this means when you analyze it, you learn all of its damage vulnerabilities, damage resistances, damage immunities, and condition immunities, which I definitely, at level 3, obviously, again, it's just confirming possibly biases you might have. Like, if it's a tree thing, it's probably vulnerable to fire, etc. But if you're up against something you're like, I don't know what this is, I think it's just a way to help the people who maybe need that extra thing. I keep hitting it, but it doesn't seem to be doing anything.
It's a really good. I thought that was just a monk thing. I didn't realize it was particular to this, and I was like, wow.
I thought so too. I thought it was a key point thing, and
it's good. It should. I would suggest this becomes baseline monk. Because I think extract aspects is it's so thematic to the monk, and it's a really good feature, and it's really helpful because sometimes you are just like, for fuck's sake, it's immune to fire, it's don't do any fire damage, but it's it
can't be put prone, all that sort of thing, it can't be grappled, all those sort of things.
Save so many spell slots that you just waste on things like that a lot of the time finding out. So it's really good.
And on top of that as well, any analyzed creature that misses you with an attack, you can use your reaction to make an unarmed strike against it if it's within your reach.
Yeah.
Because you've analyzed it, you can see its fighting patterns.
Yeah.
So I love that. Again, very thematic in the sense of like you're studying this creature and you're like, it's leaving its left flank open, etc. And then it comes to attack you, goes, just like that, you see, and you just watch it sort of try and like the punch past you. You're like, God, you're keeping yourself wide open there, mate.
Reactions are so underutilized in D&D, and every time they're really great. So as someone who's always come up with crazy ideas, I tried to make a class that only had reactions, only acted on reactions, and I think it could be really fun. Like you're constantly you never do anything. Make it a monk, which is always standing there and never just always waits for you to attack and just moves out the way and hits you, does the Neo, like watch the thing go past and do the punch, that sort of thing.
Like you said, I was like, is this not in the main class, in the class features? And it's not at all. So yeah.
Then to make it embolden that further, you get extort truth, which is at 6th level. Precisely strike a hidden cluster of nerves on a creature, temporarily preventing it from masking its true thoughts and intent. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can spend 1 key point to force it to make a charisma saving throw. On a failed save, it is unable to speak a deliberate lie, and all charisma checks directed at the creature are made with advantage for up to 10 minutes. You know if it succeeded or failed on a saving throw. An affected creature is aware of the effect and can thus avoid answer questions to which it would normally respond with a lie. Yep. Such creature can be evasive in its answers as long as the effect lasts. If you wish to impose effects on a creature without injuring it, you can attack the creature to simply touch it, dealing no damage on a hit, which I think is great, because if you just want to be like pinch the neck in the right position to sort of imbue this. And I love it because it's so thematic to the thing. It works so well for Bo in the show. It's just Zone of Truth to a certain extent.
It's a combative Zone of Truth. But I do like it as well. It's like, it just makes it clear. Then you have also at level 6, you've got mystical erudition. You have extensively studied the history and lore within the archives of the Cobalt Soul. So firstly, you learn a language of your choice, and then you gain a proficiency with one of the following skills. So Arcana, History, Investigation, Nature, and Religion. If you already have proficiency with one of those listed skills, you can instead choose to double your proficiency bonus for any ability check that uses that chosen proficiency. Amazing, getting expertise there. You can gain additional language and an additional skill proficiency from the above list, or
you could double it again.
Or you could do it again and again. Sorry, I completely missed that last bit. So you can do it again at 11 and 17. So again, roleplay flavoring, but you are getting so skilled because you're reading all the stuff. You're doing your Duolingo. You're getting through and you're learning Dwarvish at a fast pace.
Yo hablo español.
Exactly. That's Gnomish, right?
Then you get at 11th level, Mind of Mercury. You've honed your awareness and reflexes through mental aptitude and pattern recognition. Once per turn, if you've already taken your reaction, you may spend 1 key point to take an additional reaction. You can only use 1 reaction per triggering effect, though. But still, really cool.
Pretty good. Ooh.
Can be grabbing javelins out of the air number of times.
Nope.
Nope. And then you get your additional level of that mystical erudition before getting onto your debilitating barrage, which is what, Fiona?
I think this is a cracking name for it. Like, already I'm like,
great.
This is pretty cool. So you've gained the knowledge of manipulating a creature's ki to undermine their fortitude. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can spend 3 ki points to cause the creature to gain vulnerability to one damage type of your choice for 1 minute. Or until the end of a turn in which it hasn't taken any damage of that type.
It has taken damage of that
type. It has taken of that type. Sorry, my bad. If a creature has resistance to that damage type you choose, it is suppressed for a minute rather than gaining vulnerability. If it is immune, if that damage you choose is unaffected, and a creature who is affected by this feature cannot be affected again for 24 hours. But holy heck.
I would love to make the immune resistance, though. That's the only thing I would say, because you just want that moment where it's like Vecna, and you're like, there's necrotic damaging it, it's not working, and then you know that, and you see them casting it, and you're like, Vecna's like, what are you doing? Hey, what's up, man? That's how we talk.
What are you doing? Right? Yeah.
You're gonna do power word kill on me, ain't gonna work. And then you just do this to them, and you switch it, and they're like, no!
You're just God at this point, just switching things.
Exactly, just playing with that. I think it's just such a fun thing. Like, killing a fire dragon with fire is sort of silly, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's the irony of it. Oh, the irony.
Everything about it just feels so well put together and well thought out. Like, because it works well with really abstract aspects, and you're like, okay, so we know this, and then on its next turn, you're like, guess what? Like, just really enjoyed that. And then obviously, finally, we get final
version of that erudition.
Erudition, yes. There we go. We've done all 8 of those other subclasses.
There is a lot of subclasses. People love making monk classes.
Yeah.
No wonder why, because they are all pretty great.
We were treated quite well to like the open hand and the 4 elements last time. And then we're like, well, what else can we think of? And then the door opened essentially, and this wave of just very interesting ways of looking at monks that aren't necessarily like Avatar or maybe like Jedi, etc. So there's a lot to it. I know I'm going back to that way of mercy, but I'm like, that feels to me like such a cool role play thing that I'd like to look at. But equally, like the way the Drunken Master, the Sun Soul, the Ascendant Dragon, they feel different enough that I'm like, ooh, what stories can we create with these particular monks?
I think it's inherently obvious in what we've been saying the whole way through both of these episodes about the different ways you can play a monk. It is just endless. And hopefully it inspires some people to think about these, take these things and also come up with your own ideas for how you might reposition and purpose these abilities in different ways, because I think that's part of the fun of this game. We're into New Game Plus era, I think, of D&D right now. 100%. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've all played it most people have played it now for quite a serious amount of time. And I find it weird even now myself when we're talking about these, and I go, that's just like this spell, and that's just like that thing, and I know the stuff. Do you know what I mean? I find it weird, but I also find it amazing. There's still things for me to learn from it, like these monk classes, which I've never really spent the time on. But I think everyone's in that end game now, and I think we're looking for more from our games. I think it's time now for us all to level up, I think, in a certain way. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just me, but I feel like people are looking for a level up. If I was Wizards, that's something I would be thinking about for the next phase of this cinematic universe that is D&D, which is that it should be like, I think it's now time to start thinking about epic levels again, like we talked about. I think make those booths better. Let's start thinking about ways to help people from a DM's point of view create characters and utilize, like, give examples of, like, let's reflavor. Let's take six existing subclasses from each of the things, reflavor them in a different way, but use all the same skill sets, but talk about reflavoring things and making more narrative out of them.
Like we've talked about before, like, oops, all monks sort of thing. Here, there's no issue with you all having the same base skills and then just changing, like, trying different things out, which would totally make sense. If we were thinking, going back to that sports team analogy, like, there's always someone that is, say, the team mom. Maybe that's a way of mercy monk. There's always, like, the wild child. There's always the one that is, like, super into swords, which could be the Kensai one. So it's, I like that.
Exactly. With the amount of subclasses we have now, Oops All Monks is not a boring thing. Oops All Bards is not a boring... Oops All Rogues, you've got an arcane trickster, an assassin, and a thief. They're all doing something completely different. Or a mastermind, a swashbuckler and an arcane trickster. They're all completely different aspects of the same. It's like basically Blades in the Dark, isn't it? It's something else I've been looking at. And all these sorts of other smaller, lightweight systems where really they're playing with a much smaller pool of things. You get so much out of just mucking around with a couple of tweaks here and there to make your, particularly Empowered by Apocalypse, is making your move, just theming your moves. The mechanics are all the same. You're rolling the same amount of D6 and hoping for the same number on those 2D6, which is a fail or not a fail. So games like that succeed, if not thrive, based on a mechanic that is so base.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? That when you've got something like this, well, you've got all these mechanics to play with in just monks. Do you know what I mean?
I know, yeah.
You could just rename all those moves, basically, and it's something completely different. So that's all I'm getting at, really. I think that's what it's made me be aware of, particularly with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, 11 traditions. It's just, whoa. Oh, Hamilton, thank you so much. I know we spent a long time going through the final 8 stuff, but it felt good to, again, as we always do those separate, look at the base stuff and then look at the more specialized stuff. So I very much appreciate.
And unlike our Ranger one, it wasn't rant, then more rant. Well, I mean, I was ranting, but in a positive way.
Yes, true. It wasn't anger and then aggression, absolutely. So to sign us off, Hamilton, where can we find you on the internet? Any upcoming projects that we should know about? How's the Kickstarter going?
Well, the Kickstarter has been finalized.
Woo-hoo.
It made nearly 10 grand, which is unbelievable, to be honest. And so the outpouring of love, and particularly for the art, which was, nearly crying worthy, I'm not going to lie, that is the emotional bit when you're just like people saying, can you put more of your art up because we want to buy it? You're like, who are you? Where have you been all my life? Do you know what I mean? It's just like, that was so emotional. And it was just such a you know what it's like being a content creator. It's quite a lot of work, and you don't get a lot back sometimes. And so when you get even not the money, it's the tool, really. As I said, it's just that's literally got nothing to do with it. The actual fact is the number of people that bought it and wanted it and were asking and talking about it passionately is what made my year so early in the year. On top of that, we are going to be doing something on my Fueled by Chaos on my Warhammer channel, which has also been doing very well this week, which is very weird. So I'm in a very positive mood at the moment. So, you've caught me at a good time, even though I've been talking about really dark things in our monks thing. We're going to be doing a live actual play of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay with myself as GM and Taylor from Backwater Bastards and our creepy gal, Fiona.
It's me. Oh, yay. Hello.
And I'm going to be taking them through. Now, people who know Warhammer probably do know a place called Mordheim. It's a very famous city destroyed by a comet and is filled with warp stone, and loads of mercenaries are all fighting over territory in it. So it's a fun little place to go investigate. The game originally that was Mordheim was like a little skirmish game based around Warhammer Fantasy. It was very roleplay heavy in itself anyway, so we're not going to be playing the actual Mordheim game, but we're going to be adapting that within Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and enjoying that. So that's something that's coming out, and that'll be on Thursdays on the channel, on Thursday evenings. Time to be decided, I think, but we'll leave that until then.
There'll be lots of notice about it. So
exactly.
Exciting for that.
And I'm doing some more kit bashing because I did a kit bashing. I love doing it, and I thought, well, I'll record this one, and then people are really liking it, so I'm gonna do more. And I bought myself some really cool models that I'm gonna be doing that. I did a little poll to see what people want to see first, because I've got a few things on my list that I need to do. That's the plan.
Nice.
What? Why? When? Where?
I'm so glad you asked. It's not even a proper answer. I just don't know every time you say it. My name is Fiona. She, her pronouns. I am part of why? I don't know either. We're getting there. When? It is currently 3:00, almost 3:00, so we need to rush up to the end of this episode. But where? I'm so glad you asked. Where is a What Am I Rolling? A twice monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast, which looks at different RPG systems, and we do some interviews with game designers and game adjacent experts in the field. at time of recording, we have just released an interview with Laurie O'Connell, who is a great game designer in the UK sphere, who has just also had a Kickstarter funded recently on his game called Death Game, which is basically inspired by games such as Squid Game, Alice in Borderland, etc., where everyone around the table is doing these sort of like Hunger Games style games, but it's not one GM. Basically, this one of the cool main mechanics is that when your character dies, you take over running the game until you narrow it down to the final couple of people, and then you see who wins from there. So it's not necessarily adversarial. It's more of a collaborative storytelling.
I like that. That's a really good idea.
Other than that, I'm an improviser. I do some teaching as well. Hoping to do some more teaching online in the future. I'm sure once I've figured all that out, that'll be great. I'm also doing some secret recordings for stuff.
They sound really good, by the way.
Next week, we'll have the start of Women in Gaming Month at Horde of Tales, which I'm running a game of Vaesen for, which is good. And that's going to be the pre-written scenario of the Hampstead Heath group. Very creatives and people going missing, and it's like this lady of the house doesn't seem on the level. So it's all fun stuff like that. And Vaesen is a brilliant game in terms of like mixing sort of fae and folklore into like industrialization of the 1800s and how those things don't always mash up.
And it's kind of like Sherlock Holmes meets horror in the sort of sense, kind of how
exactly.
I would
With hopefully minimal combat, because there is ways to, almost like Undertale, there's ways to make it through without going straight to the killing blow, etc. And maybe that's not what people want either.
I've got the book right in front of me. I've never read it. It's so awful. Is it the same system base as like all the other Free League based systems?
Yes, it is very much the very basic version of the Year Zero engine. There's no stress dice or anything like that. It's just a pool of d6s. You add your attribute and skill, put them together.
There's no stress mechanics in it at all or anything like that?
It is most straightforward of the games. There's some other little bits and pieces, but it's not like Blade Runner, it's not like Alien, etc.
Or like the One Ring, which has got the corruption mechanics.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's more about you come up with finding those clues about what is haunting this place, and like how do you find out like what's the ritual to banish it or to appease it in some way, and that's the sort of clues that you get towards it. So a little bit Brindlewood Bay in a sense of like you come up with maybe your own ritual, and that's okay. There's some really cool bits, and certainly the beastry behind it is really interesting, and like the different sort of folklore elements of it. Yeah. But you'll have to wait till it comes out on Horde and Tales. We do that live in March, and then just tootling along otherwise. So just poodling on with this, poodling on with poodling on with all the other one-shots we've got going on. So
I was going to say, we do recommendations sometimes.
Yeah.
I was going to recommend Quinn's Quest, which I know we put into our Discord. Quinn from Shut Up and Sit Down and People Make Games, of which I've been binging a load of People Make Games because I hadn't caught up for them with them for such a long time. So there was a lot that I'd missed. Quinn's Quest particularly is Quinn looking at role-playing games in a really great sort of mid-noughties, late 80s, early 90s, sort of like BBC
style.
Early morning TV show. It's got that perfect music. It's a very fun, does it in the very shut up and sit down way.
Yes. Because I've joined their Patreon, and they've got additional videos, and there's one about like rolling dice, which I know sounds really silly, but it's 10 ways to roll dice better. And there's stuff about telling GMs to like, your GM screen that's hiding things. If you feel it's not like an important roll it in front of them. There's things about cups, using like rolling in a cup and then holding it, and then you don't know if someone's survived a death saving roll or not until you go over and then look underneath their cup. That sort of thing. That I just was like, I can highly recommend checking out all their stuff on that. Yeah, it's very different.
Join their Patreon. Damn. I might have to do it now. Sorry, Grant Howard, you're getting
There's one in, one out.
Yeah, there is, literally. I've got to, because it's too, otherwise I made myself a limit.
Thank you so much for listening to us, and we hope to hear you. We hope to listen.
We hope to see you.
Wait, I'm panicking.
We don't say that. We don't say that.
We never say that.
What we do is we say, we'll see you on the flip side. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.